May I say how much we enjoyed your act? So clever how you fooled the audience, right? Into thinking you're a complete idiot. By how you say, acting like a dumbass prick was very funny.
Welcome to episode 23 of the Jonathan Creek podcast, where that introduction sounds like one of our Facebook reviews. Or iTunes.
I was going to say he's got the same trick as you.
It's no trick. How are you?
I've got a bit of a sore throat, Gerry. How are you?
Alright.
Less happy now that you're facing me.
Yeah, she didn't tell me about that sore throat. We could have taken precautions.
Proper a guard of some kind.
One of those little masks that some of the tourists wear around.
Yeah, that's a bit of an overreaction, isn't it?
Do you know why they do that?
It's fashionable.
Partially.
To filter out pollutants.
Apparently not. I think most people assume that the tourists don't want to catch anything. It's the opposite.
They don't want their germs to get out.
Yep.
There you go.
That's what I've read. I'm not sure if that's true.
Well, if anyone out there is wearing one of these sort of paper face masks, you can write in and let us know.
Uh-huh.
Usual,
No, don't do that.
Usual social media channels apply.
Yeah. What do we have this week?
We have a murder mystery.
Do we do? For a change?
Yes.
It's not always the case.
It's not always the case.
Good to see one.
This one doesn't even turn into one until towards the end of the episode, but yes.
2 or 3 different plots.
Yeah, 3 I think.
Yeah.
Interestingly done.
The most obnoxious one isn't the actual murder itself.
No.
But we can get to that.
We definitely will.
Do you have a summary prepared?
As I always do.
Please crack on.
In the Tailor's Dummy, we join Jonathan and Carla as they attempt to decipher how a man was able to switch faces during an attack on a prominent journalist. Close examination of the crime scene fails to yield any clues, but as the duo dig deeper, it seems that a darker deed is discovered. Can Jonathan pin down the culprit before they strike again? Or has the killer designed a perfect plan?
Thank you, dummy.
Harsh.
Train station is where we begin, and we see a mature couple who we come to know as Claude and Louise Bergman. They're waiting for the arrival of a 17-year-old art student.
Yeah, I think they're brother and sister rather than a couple.
Yep, and this student is their niece, Carrie.
It's not explained who her parents are.
No. There's a reason for that, which becomes obvious.
Okay.
Carrie likes bird watching, which is very fortuitous. She's got the gear with her.
She's a sort of Enid Blyton style character.
Yeah. They've not seen her since she was a child. She duly appears. I thought this was going to become more relevant, the fact that, this is someone who we don't recognise.
It might not be her.
Yeah.
No.
No, they just couldn't be bothered. Why would you not bother seeing? She was travelling or something, but still.
I think she's a student at this stage, so she's maybe responsible for her own travel, so it could be a fallout between her parents and these people. I don't know.
Could be, yeah. It's irrelevant.
It really is.
We're in the car with them, and as they approach a huge country mansion, Claude compliments Carrie on her artwork, and she shows off a CD that she has bought for her grandfather. This is the grandfather whose house they're going to.
Yes, it's a Marx Brothers CD.
Yep, he will soon be 79, but apparently he's got some spring collections still in him.
A few, she thinks.
So he's a designer.
Yes. This kind of, I don't know if this dates the programme, but a couple of times this show's referred to people in their 70s as being really old. I don't think we would consider someone in their 70s right now as being elderly or...
No, but I mean, it's 79, which is near enough 80, I think.
80, but
80s are probably considered.
But even in the 15 years since then, I think perceptions of age, as the baby boomer generation gets to that sort of age and there's more fit and healthy 70-year-olds than there maybe were in the past.
Sure, but what I would say is, in fairness, we're talking about from a work perspective, and most people towards their 80th birthday are no longer still churning it out.
I think people our age will have to keep churning out well into their 80s.
No doubt.
Thank you, Brexit.
What happens next?
Well, Louise makes a cryptic comment, which we can figure out now because we know who everybody is, but when you initially think that she and Claude are a couple, she says, "You know our father, Carrie, he just goes on forever." So you're thinking, who's our?
Yeah.
And then she swerves the car to the side of the road and slams the brakes on. Says something flew out in front of her, though we don't get to see it.
Yeah, so they get out, but there is no sign of any damage or signs of a beast being splattered.
No,
This is a bit of a red flag, I'd say.
absolutely. Conveniently, they can see the house from there.
Mm-hmm.
And Carrie pulls out a pair of binoculars to get a better look.
Yes, which is what I said at the top there.
As a bird watcher, very fortuitous.
Yeah.
And she sees something quite concerning.
What's that?
Her grandfather is out on the window ledge, and he doesn't look very happy.
No, he's in a very agitated state. So agitated, in fact, that he jumps to his death.
Yeah, it doesn't look like a fatal height to jump from, but certainly it does kill him,
Yeah.
as we find out shortly.
Rushing to the house, they find him dead on the floor outside. Louise goes upstairs to the room of her father, Marco,
Yeah,
where she finds what?
I've got a lot of questions about this that are going to ruin the rest of the episode. But anyway, she finds an open newspaper with a sort of a, what do you call it, a hit piece maybe? It's a Daily Mail style paper with a bitter columnist called Donna
Henry.
Henry. And she's attacked his most recent collection.
Yeah, I mean, generally sort of disparaging and deriding his work.
Absolutely.
Apparently he's a legend in the field.
It seems to be.
Back down at the death scene, Carrie hears a noise in some nearby bushes. I think these bushes are under the window.
Directly under the window.
And goes over to investigate. The score is quite dramatic, although she doesn't seem too scared.
No, she seems, I would say, surprised at what she sees.
Yeah, we don't find out what it is at this point.
We do not. We jump ahead, I presume, to the next day.
Yep.
And an old friend makes an appearance.
Yes, Kenny Starkis, the deviant magician, or wannabe magician.
Yeah, the star, the Norwegian television star. No, I'm confused.
This time he is being exposed by a little brat.
Yeah, he's doing a teleportation trick where he magics himself from one pod to another. And it's clearly a different man that comes out the second pod with Kenny speaking for him.
Yeah.
He's called out with this small child and responds in quite an aggressive way.
What does he do?
He locks him in one of the pods and zips the door shut.
Deserves it. I mean, I'm no fan of Kenny's attitude. However, that little brat deserved it.
Yeah, I think anyone who goes to a magic show and shouts out how it was done is asking for trouble.
He is. Now, at the same time this is going on, we see two shady-looking characters as they watch with interest.
Yes, they're stereotypical foreign bad guys.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
To where?
A restaurant.
Where Baxter and a distracted or disinterested Carla are being interviewed by the aforementioned Donna on their professional and personal relationship.
Yeah, there's quite a telling passage here where she asks them as a couple whether it's a marriage of equals, and Brendan doesn't let Carla speak. He talks over her to say yes.
Now, I think I can probably guess why this has happened. What we come to see in this episode and perhaps future episodes, we need Baxter not to be as lovable, perhaps, as he once was. Now, we've spoke before about how he's quite naive, nice guy, doesn't see. And I think that, if anything, if Carla had to act in any way dubiously towards him, you might feel sorry and not too sympathetic towards Carla. So I think they're trying to make
building
him
towards a.
Yeah, they're making him. They're showing some flaws in his character here.
I mean, they kind of did that in the Coonskin Cap as well when he was completely disinterested in Carla. And it's really the same flaw here.
Mm. But it's highlighted. I think they're emphasising that.
Yeah. Brendan is showing Donna this Japanese television show that he thinks will adapt well to the UK market.
Yeah, and I think back then, it's a bit like Monkey Tennis with Alan Partridge. I think it might have seemed quite ridiculous back then, but you could definitely see that today.
You know, it happens all the time. I think Takeshi's Castle's got a UK series that runs, and you saw, what was it, the BBC had a show with Richard Hammond that was nonsense off the
Top Gear?
There was that, but there was a subsequent Total Wipeout, I think it was called. It's just rubbish.
Yeah. So this game show, it's couples get hooked up to lie detector and polygraph machines, and they have to answer questions about their love life and what they think of each other, and obviously it's meant to be hilarious and insightful. Yeah,
there's an unfortunate example from the Japanese show, and Brendan narrates to Donna, it's a man being asked if he's ever yearned to have sex with his wife's sister. And he says no, but the alarm goes off signifying this is a lie, and his wife emerges from the audience to beat him around the head.
Yeah. Now this is a portent, I think, of what's to come. Now, we've had this discussion before on the podcast, and I suggested that Jonathan and Carla had unresolved feelings for each other, and you disagreed.
Well, it's not so much I disagreed as I didn't think what we saw was evidence of it. I don't know. I'm not sure there's unresolved feelings at this stage.
Okay. We'll see what happens.
Okay.
Anyway, before they can discuss this TV concept further, an unhappy Claude storms in with Louise in tow.
Standards are certainly dropping in this place. I thought there was supposed to be a law about vermin in restaurants.
I'm sorry, have we met?
I wonder how you sleep at nights. Everything for you in life is black and white, isn't it? You're so full of certainties.
Claude, come on.
Someone should explain to you the difference between comment and crucifixion. Yes, how does it feel to be having lunch with a murderer? You sent him to his death that night, just as surely as if you pushed him off that ledge.
Mr. Bergman, if your father was too weak to accept honest criticism, that's hardly a failing of mine. And if you'd like to repeat that slander here in front of witnesses, please do go ahead. And I'll be happy to sue you and your family's fashion empire for every last cent you possess.
Come on. This is probably just the kind of confrontation she thrives on.
I'll make you eat these words. So help me.
Now, Donna quite happily or easily brushes this confrontation off. I think it shows her as a very sort of cold and unpleasant individual.
Yeah, she goes on to ask, this is one of my favourite exchanges of the episode, to ask Brendan if Eyes and Ears is a docudrama. and deadpan, he replies that no, it's more of a dramamentary.
Yeah. Back in the street, a worried-looking Kenny watches as paramedics remove the victims of his human cheese slice. I don't think we mentioned that earlier.
Yeah, it was the act that was coming up.
Yeah. Before he is approached by the two dodgy-looking chaps with backhanded compliments that we heard in the intro.
We did.
And they clearly have something in mind for him.
We'll find out.
But not right now, because just now we go to the theatre, where Jonathan is on the phone to Carla, talking about Adam's latest misadventure.
Yeah, he's off for a week because he gagged during a sword-swallowing trick and, much to the disgust of the audience, had to be hospitalised.
He's got another problem. They have lost 3 showgirls in the space of this week for some unknown reason.
Yep, handed in their notice and left.
And as Jonathan is declining her invitation to have some publicity shots done for the Eyes and Ears programme, he notices...
Well, Eyes and Ears? I think it's for the new show that features Jonathan, the new true crime programme.
Ah, right, okay.
They talked about it in the previous episode.
Sure. He notices another showgirl being enticed away after receiving a note.
Yeah, he quickly ends the call and sees what he can find out from that girl.
Yeah, by snooping outside her dressing room.
As you do. He learns that she's going to meet somebody at the Kingsley Industrial Estate on Thursday night.
And she seems happy to attend
She seems
this.
very happy, yeah.
She's not being coerced in any way.
No. Do you think it'll be an alien encounter?
Yes. From the theatre, we go to Donna Henry's house, and as she prepares for bed with her nightly routine, including a hairband and some cream on her face, who do we see doing what?
Oh, Claude is lurking outside her window watching her evening routine.
Pervert.
Is this the first time in Jonathan Creek so far that we've had back-to-back scenes of men creeping around outside women's rooms?
It's hard to say, but with Adam involved, I'm hesitant to say.
It might not be the first, yeah. If anyone remembers another one, they can phone us on the usual number.
We're at a photo shoot next.
Yes, the one that Jonathan was not happy to attend, and he's still not happy.
No, but he has succumbed and is having his pictures taken with Carla, and he's wearing a new duffel coat.
I quite like his new duffel coat.
Yeah, did this remind you of Columbo, the episode where he's given a new raincoat?
Yeah, he didn't like it, and when they try and put ties on him as well.
Yeah.
Like that, yeah.
He is willing to pose for these pictures, but draws the line at holding a magnifying glass or dressing like a moronic-looking dog.
Well, the dog's dressed as Sherlock Holmes. I think what Jonathan says is there's a level of moronic behaviour he won't sink to. And Carla's trying to argue the photographer's case, but after they see the dog, I don't think there's anything to argue.
No.
Brendan hears the raised voices and comes to see what's going on.
And they follow him up to his office where he tries to make the peace between Carla and Jonathan.
Yeah, it's bad for business if they're not getting on.
Yeah, he treats them like a couple of kids, as if they're his kids.
It's really weird.
Yeah, but not quite as weird as what he does next.
Yeah, he wants to watch them kiss.
Yes, not just a little peck in the cheek. They've got to make it believable.
Yeah, Carla does this peck. I mean, who would take this literally, kiss and make up, to start with?
Someone who wanted to kiss the other person and needed a reason to instigate it.
But then
Someone who might have unresolved.
But then Brendan also takes it literally. He's actually expecting a kiss between them.
Yeah, but Brendan is a very literal guy. He doesn't think in the multiple levels.
I don't think Jonathan's really been able to consent to this at all. He's kind of taken by surprise.
Oh, yeah, but I think he could have pulled away if he really wanted to.
I don't think he had a chance to react. We'll see what he thinks later on.
Okay.
Anyway, after they share a lingering kiss, Brendan asks them to shake hands, which I quite enjoyed as well.
Yeah.
That's some of his best moments so far.
Yeah, Brendan is a good character.
Yeah.
We're at a hotel next where Donna arrives to stay and gets room service delivered before working on her laptop in her bathrobe and then sitting in front of a mirror to go through this beauty routine again.
Yeah, it's the Mayfair Park Hotel, and we see the traditional POV shot as someone enters the stairwell.
We do indeed. This person comes up the stairs and into the corridor and then lets themselves into Donna's room.
They seem to have access through some kind of swipey card thing, and they grab her from behind, and they're revealed to be wearing a hockey mask and be holding a gun.
Yeah, very Friday the 13th.
Oh.
The masked intruder talks of her smug rhetoric and their general dislike of her and her profession.
Yeah, it's a lecture on morality, I would say, before asking her to tear up her own article and eat it.
Yeah, this is the article about Marco. But at this point, she catches a glimpse of Claude under the mask when he removes it because I think his nose has been irritated by some lilies nearby.
Yeah, she sees this in the mirror.
Yeah. Just then, who appears in the scene?
Well, the hotel manager knocks the door, and she tells him everything's fine. But Claude hides in the shower. This man hides in the shower.
Yeah.
And the manager comes in and can see that something's going on. He sees the torn up paper. He sees there's somebody in the shower.
Yeah, so he pretends to leave so that when Claude exits the bathroom a moment or so later, the manager can jump on him and allow Donna to remove his mask. Now, if we don't make any reference to what we find out later,
Yeah.
this is a ridiculous thing. The manager would never,
Yeah, wait and grab somebody. You know, he would call the police.
of course, it's an
Guy
armed
with a
man.
gun. Yeah.
Yeah, no chance.
No.
Anyway, what is the problem that Donna finds?
It's not Claude at all. It's a man of an entirely different ethnic background.
And much younger.
Yes.
Who then manages to free himself from the manager and escape. That whole scene is nonsense.
Yes. And even more so when we find out what really happened.
Yes. We're at the TV studio.
Yeah, Donna's explaining to Carla and Brendan what she went through.
Yes, and she is quite perceptive by saying that it's quite clearly a setup to make her question her sanity.
Or her certainties, yeah.
She also dismisses Carla's suggestion that perhaps it was a Claude mask, but she can't explain how Claude managed to walk into the bathroom when someone else walked out.
It's a mystery.
Clearly.
Over at the theatre, the fourth showgirl officially resigns.
Yes.
And Carla's there, presumably to tell Jonathan about this Donna Henry thing.
She is indeed. And also to apologise for the tongue that she delivered yesterday.
Yep, and Jonathan backs up what I was saying earlier and says he didn't really have an opportunity to resist her.
Yeah, but you would say that.
Would you?
Yeah.
If you were interested, you would say you weren't?
No, because it's not a direct
You
come
don't want
on.
to seem too eager?
Yeah, because this is, as far as he's concerned, she can come back with saying, yeah, well, he told me to, I was only playing along. So if she'd made an obvious move of her own accord, then he might be more open.
That's true. His lack of tactfulness shows up once again as he makes a deeply inappropriate comment about her outfit.
Well, yeah. In fairness, I think he does have a slight point. it's very revealing, which is fine, but you're in a work environment and you don't have the right just to wear whatever you want. There'll be rules about what is acceptable and what's not. If a chap working in a bank, he can't have a unbuttoned shirt and his chest hair sticking out. They'll say, no, you're not wearing,
We are the bank that says vest.
We're the bank that says vest, yeah. I think, again, it's different because she's a presenter, and so perhaps that is what they're asking her to do. But then on the flip side, if they had to say to her, we want you to show cleavage, she'd be rightly offended by saying, well, no. But I
think she's got the right to wear whatever she wants without anyone drawing any inferences about what it means about her state of mind.
Yes and no. In her own private life, she can wear whatever she likes. But there is works do have a dress code. If she came in
We don't know that's it.
It will be. There's things that are just not appropriate for the workplace where you're having to work with
I
other
don't
people.
think it was that inappropriate.
Not that inappropriate, but it was very obvious, and it was made very obvious through this in this scene and in future scenes. I mean, again, I think if you come in a micro skirt if you're a woman, or a pair of shorts if you're a guy, or very skin-tight jeans if you're a guy showing off bits and bobs, people will be saying, you know what, that's fine, you're allowed to do whatever you want, you should do whatever you want in your own time, but those trousers are too tight for the workplace, don't be wearing them. Or don't wear shorts to the workplace, don't wear micro skirts in the workplace,
suits and things like
don't
that.
wear leisure suits, yes. That is the thing. It's there is a dress code, or there is a level of appropriateness for the workplace.
Do you not think it would have been polite of Jonathan just to not say anything though?
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. But I think she is deliberately doing it for his attention.
Would she do that though?
No, she hasn't done it before. It's not her traditional look. This is the first time we've noticed this, and first time Jonathan's noticed this. It just happens to be after this relationship has taken a turn.
Is that something that people do? Is it like, oh, I quite fancy him, I'm going to go there?
No,
with
people
him,
don't
hanging out?
normally kiss other people and use tongues when they're, they shouldn't be. So she's being very. I think the whole thing is she used her tongue. We have to accept that.
Well, what I'm getting at is it being realistically written? Is this a way?
Of course not. But
Somebody
we're talking
would
about.
actually behave.
No, we're talking. It's Jonathan Creek.
It's like he's got a big flashing signpost of like, oh,
Yeah.
she likes you.
Yeah, but that's the thing. So she did slip him the tongue, and then the next day turns up in a very revealing, provocative dress
Okay.
for his benefit.
So
And I think he's saying, do you know what? If you really want to apologise about slipping me the tongue, then perhaps deliberately flashing your chest to me, isn't the best way to show that it meant nothing and you didn't want it to happen.
Let's move to the next scene.
Okay.
The Mayfair Park Hotel once again.
Yeah, Jonathan and Carla are there for a snoop.
Yeah, the obvious conclusion from the next part is that the hotel was in on this trick because we learned that Donna gave them a very bad review in the past and she was invited back for this one night only to see how it's been improved.
Yeah, but to be fair, I don't think that is the obvious conclusion at all. I think if that had happened, my first assumption wouldn't be, they're obviously quite happy to go along with some elaborate trick because they get a bad review. That's not the...
Well, there
that's
is
what
that,
Jonathan
but
says.
the
but,
coincidence that it happened the one night she was there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, Carla spots a promo for this new show that they've got coming up in the newspaper, so she swiftly moves Jonathan away before he spots the Photoshop work.
Yeah, why?
They've added a deerstalker and a pipe onto him to make him look more Sherlockian.
Yeah. Up in the room, Jonathan sneaks past a maid who is cleaning up into the bathroom of the room that Donna was in,
Yeah.
as Carla pretends that she is a guest who's staying there and is going to get in for a shower.
Yeah, so she turns the shower on and there's an unfortunate twist.
Yeah, the maid has forgotten her polish, so returns, and now you would just turn the shower off.
Yeah, but she's not wet. Well, she might not have gone in it yet. She's only on for a few seconds.
Exactly. You could just turn this off and keep the curtains drawn. The maid isn't going to start poking around.
No. They both end up a bit damp as a result of it.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's not just Jonathan hiding in there. I mean, she knew that she was in there, so Carla didn't have to get into, unless, of course, again, Carla was quite happy, perhaps even keen to get into a hot and wet situation with Jonathan.
That doesn't seem like the sort of thing. It's not a very romantic situation, is it?
Yeah.
Really?
Being in a shower with Carla, I would think that would be romantic.
In your clothes with a duffel coat on.
Where it might lead, because she, as we hear just now, hints at that.
So,
Are we getting any closer?
Well, there's no way they could have switched places in this room. Clearly.
Trapdoor in the tray? Or maybe they got in and out through the walls somehow.
Impractical. And with this curtain, you'd see the movement.
Yet she swears blind she didn't imagine it. That he was here 1 minute and then... Oh, hang on. This is getting scary.
Well, whatever happened, I think we can assume the hotel were in on it. That's probably why they invited her here in the first place.
Oh. Because they had a score to settle with her as well.
Not with everyone else she's ever rubbished in print.
I see what you're saying. Don't think she's likely to come back now.
Probably not.
And what happens next?
Carla asks Jonathan to dry her down, and he graciously turns the hairdryer on.
Yeah, I mean, this proves it. She's offering for him to feel her body.
I think that's a leap.
Of course it's not. Why would you ask someone? Why would she need to ask someone to dry her down?
He had the towel.
She's a fully grown adult. She doesn't need help. She's not a toddler. You don't ask someone who you don't want to touch your body to dry you
question.
down. She wants him. Jeez, Iain.
He doesn't seem to be getting that message.
Of course he's not. He can't read women.
Well,
She's doing everything. She's slipped him the tongue.
she's a married woman.
She's flashing her chest, and now she's saying, "Here, towel, dry
in a
me."
professional environment.
They've jumped into a shower together. She didn't have to do that. She's offering you a fumble at her body.
I'm not sure.
You're worse than him. Absolutely worse. Disgraceful, Iain. Disgraceful.
We leap ahead to Thursday night at 8 p.m.
Yeah, it's in this lock-up unit where these showgirls are being asked to meet.
Yes, or certainly this last one is, and Jonathan's surprised to see who answers the door.
Yeah, another peeping Tom. He's in the bushes.
Yeah, he's hiding. Yes, looking very dodgy. And he spots his old friend Kenny across
Yes,
the road.
who beckons in the girl. So peering inside, he sees him demoing a magic trick to her.
It's not much of a trick, is it? He gets in a box and he gets back out.
Yeah, alongside the two dodgy guys.
Yes, and when the girl mimics this, she's locked in the box, and Kenny and the guys hammer nails into the lid to keep it
All
on.
very sinister.
Yes.
Now, I remember watching this the first time, and even this time for the podcast, thinking this must be a mistake. There must be a twist that you're meant to. It's a deliberate misdirection, and we're going to find out that it's all very innocent.
Yeah, but no.
No.
After the dodgy folks leave with the girl in the box,
In a van, yeah.
Jonathan approaches Kenny.
Who has been given cash for this.
Yes, and he says the girls are being auditioned for a review in Dubai, and there's nothing dodgy going on. Does Jonathan take him for a complete imbecile? Jonathan says yes.
Quite rightly. However, Jonathan is also idiotic at this point.
He starts talking about race for some reason. He starts talking about the white slave trade.
Yeah, we've mentioned this before, I think, in an episode of the Sledgehammer podcast. I'm a bit uncomfortable with that term, the white slave trade, as if, you know what, the black slave trade, that's cool, that's all right, that's understandable, but the white slave trade is an entirely different beast.
Can't be enslaving the whites.
No,
Oof.
it's just the slave trade.
Yeah.
People
trafficking, yeah.
these days, yeah. So there's that issue, but even worse is that he tells Kenny he's got 24 hours to sort this out. What?
What do you think he's going to do?
If you're convinced, yeah, that there is a people trafficking going on here and someone's been taken away in a box, you don't put Kenny in charge for 24 hours. The guy's a moron. You've admitted it yourself. And even if he wasn't a moron, it's not. This is a high-level Interpol type situation.
He's
where,
also a man who's demonstrated very dangerous behaviour towards women in the past.
Of course he has. Yeah, the guy's a bit of a scumbag. Well, a total scumbag, as we've seen here.
No, absolutely. He's got no redeeming qualities.
Yeah, but why is Jonathan...
It's not like he's a good guy who's made a mistake. He's got no redeeming qualities.
No, what is Jonathan thinking here?
I don't want to deal with this.
If you're trafficking people, in 24 hours they could be on the other side of the planet.
Yeah. Even in 2003, yeah.
I don't know.
I think Jonathan essentially is committing a crime by not reporting this.
He is.
And he should go to jail.
If anything happened to them, yep, he should serve some time.
Yeah. Obstructing justice at the very least.
Yeah.
Over at the Baxter household.
Yes, whilst selecting a suitably revealing top,
No, I thought it was a demure outfit she was going for here.
Yeah. Are you starting to see the whole picture here, Ian?
No, it shows her choosing an outfit, so therefore she likes Jonathan.
It doesn't show her. It shows her choosing one which is more revealing than another. She's not. So then she's, okay. And the next thing we see, she's busting out. Oh, she's deliberately chosen another revealing top for Jonathan's benefit.
Because she thinks he can't resist her.
She's doing all she can. Unfortunately for her, he is resisting. So she's going all guns blazing.
Do you know, it would be much easier for her just to say something to him.
It would be, but she doesn't want to. I think she wants him to reciprocate. So
Before she embarrasses herself.
so that she is confident that he thinks or feels the same way or is up for the same type of thing.
An extramarital affair.
Yes.
That doesn't seem like a pleasing thing for Jonathan to get involved in. He works for the other guy.
But I don't think he's really bothered about working for him. It's not like he's in fear of... Adam's his real boss.
Yeah, that's true.
Baxter could
I don't
disappear at any
I don't think
time.
he wishes any harm to Baxter.
No.
It's not the kind of harm that would involve taking his wife.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's the reason why he's not getting involved just now. I'm thinking that he just isn't reading the situation.
No, not at all. He thinks that she dumped him and isn't interested.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is probably fair. I think it's better safe than sorry in Jonathan's position.
Yeah. I was going to say he's not the type of guy who leaps to answers, but he does. He leaps
Yeah,
all the time.
I think the show is maybe trying to play off how quickly he can fathom out these other complicated situations, but he has no idea when it comes to women because they're famously complicated.
We're in her car, where she reveals her big plan.
It's a great plan.
What is it? It's a cunning one, isn't it?
It is. It reminds me of the plan that Baldric, if anyone listens to the Blackadder podcast that we put out in the intervening weeks from the Jonathan Creek one, I'll remember the episode General Hospital, when Baldric has a plan to find the German spy in the hospital.
And what was that?
I was just to read the list and find someone with a German name.
And ask him, are you a German
And
spy?
ask them if they're a German spy.
Yeah, well that's...
Which is essentially the same plan as this.
Yeah, Carla wants to go up to the Bergman house and say, how did you do it?
Yes, and she thinks his ego will compel him to share the answer.
No. Because it's such a sophisticated plan, if we believe it could be pulled off,
Yeah.
that the type of person who would have come up with that, they've been too smart, really, just to admit it.
You would think.
And it does go as expected.
Absolutely. Claude denies all knowledge of the event and challenges her to prove that he was even there.
Yeah, before driving off and leaving Carla to state that she doesn't know what is worse. Jonathan saying it or thinking it.
Yes, and he says he'll just think it for... I think it's I told you so that we're
Of course.
talking about here. Carla's still optimistic, though. She thinks that perhaps Claude's sister Louise will be more forthcoming.
And so she rings the bell.
Is this the first point we find out that they're sisters? Brother and sister?
Maybe, yeah.
Yes. Inside, anyway, Louise didn't like Donna much either.
No, she thinks she is scum and needed teaching a lesson.
She doesn't really want to talk too much because she's in the middle of a manicure.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. For one, you're harassing people who's potentially... Yeah, you're harassing people whose father has just died less than 48 hours ago.
That's right out of the Columbo playbook.
Yeah. But this manicure...
Yes, Carla's happy to multitask, and as she goes with Louise to the manicure, she discovers it's not Louise who's having her nails done.
No, she is doing the... No, she's working on the hands of her late father in his coffin.
They sit either side of him and continue to talk, while Jonathan goes off to have a word with Carrie.
Yes, the niece.
I wonder if that's a reference. So you've got the Friday the 13th mask, and you've got a girl called Carrie.
Ah.
If anyone else has more horror-related items from this, get in touch, let us know.
Before we get downstairs with Jonathan and Carrie, we discover that, and I think this is quite pivotal, we discover that Marco saw Louise as the beauty of the family, whereas Claude was the brains.
Yeah.
And there's obviously a bitterness there.
Yeah, she says that he always thought Claude had the complexity and she had the complexion.
We also discovered that Claude had been housebound recently, but was certainly not afraid of flying, as Carla had thought from an article she had previously
From
read.
something that she'd read anyway. But no, Louise says he had outlets in over 30 countries.
So downstairs, Carrie is trying to show off to Jonathan, but is taken aback a little when he recognises her Nietzsche quote.
Yes, I think she thinks she's a nouveau intellectual.
Read a couple of books, isn't it? Philosophy 101, this sort of stuff.
Kind of stuff you remember for 6 months and then forget completely. Jonathan's excited to spot a complete Marx Brothers collection in the room.
Yeah, of VHS tapes. Useless these days. Before she hands him a pack of cards and asks to be amazed.
Yes. Did you pick the card that he named?
No.
I did.
I think I might have been looking down to type some notes.
Okay, yeah, no, he flicks the deck and I picked out the card that he went for.
Mm-hmm. So she is amazed but pretends to be otherwise.
What I don't know is how does he know which card he's paused on?
Yeah, there must be a way of holding it or just... Yeah, the card will stick out in some way.
Yeah. Anyway, yes, she lies and says that it wasn't the card that she picked, but remarks that she was quite surprised that her grandfather threw the parrot out the window, which is new news to Jonathan.
Yes, and also she comments that just because her grandfather was rich and famous, the things that people say still would hurt him.
Of course.
But the parrot, as you mentioned, sets a marble rolling for Jonathan, and then through flashback, we see that was what she found in the bushes on the night of the death.
Did you see that the parrot now has a bandage on its wing?
Nice touch. There's no way that a parrot could have fell in a cage from 2 floors up and survived, I don't think.
Might have done.
Really?
Yeah, I think it could have done.
I suppose if it hits the bushes...
It's a soft landing, it was cushioned. That would be part of it, yeah. I think
unless it tries, like the elevator thing, isn't it? If you're in a lift and it falls, if you jump up at the last second, perhaps the parrot was flying just at the last...
within the cage. Yeah, at least parrots have a habit of just dying for no reason, so it falls.
That's what you said, isn't it? To your son.
Yeah. That black spot was always on Monty. It was. At this point, she admits that it was the King of Hearts that she had chosen. She wants to know how Jonathan did it, and he explains that it's a 60% chance. He just pauses a bit longer on that one. And like I say, how does he know what one he's paused on?
And he asks her about the room that Marco jumped from.
And they go there.
She plays the Groucho Marx CD, and Jonathan asks her if she noticed if the light was on in the room when she saw him on the ledge that night from her binoculars.
Yeah, and she says no because she remembers her aunt turning it on when they arrived.
And finding the newspaper on the table. At this point, we see Jonathan notice some scratch marks beside the lock on a wardrobe.
Yep.
And then looks very puzzled at finding Marco's socks pinned together in pairs.
That's how you keep your socks, isn't it?
Always. Only a tramp would do otherwise.
After they've been ironed.
Who doesn't?
I heard that you've got one half of your drawer socks and half pocket squares.
I'd say 70%, 30%.
Fair enough.
He then goes on to outline the perceived wisdom of what happened that night. And Carrie thinks it must have been down to the depression that he had been suffering from.
The Great Depression.
Yes. And at this, Jonathan clicks.
Yeah.
Or something does anyway.
Something keeps going, yeah.
Outside, Jonathan receives a text message.
Yes. Someone's asking to meet him in the theatre at 8 o'clock.
Mm-hmm. And in her room, we see a distressed Carrie open a bag containing what looks to be a bathrobe or something.
I'm not sure. I think it was maybe a wrap.
Ah, okay.
That maybe had her medical stuff inside it.
Right.
She rolls her sleeve up, so you're led to believe, oh, she's doing drugs.
We are now outside the theatre where Jonathan and Carla are waiting.
I've just read my own note. Carla is cold because her boobs are out again.
Yes, so even you're noticing this. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Although I don't think she's actually cold because there'd be more evidence of that.
We'll move on.
They mention Donna's face mask, or Carla does, and Jonathan is surprised because he, again, had missed this vital piece of evidence.
Yeah, but we should say that Jonathan, again, also mentions, I think she says she's cold, and he says you should have thought about that, basically, before you wore what you were wearing.
Yeah, he's not getting the message from her at all that you think she's trying to give.
No.
The mention of the face mask is a eureka moment for Jonathan.
It is. Apparently this explains how Claude could have pulled off this trick with an idea borrowed from a Groucho Marx movie.
At this point, the billboard behind Jonathan malfunctions in a hysterical way to show him with a magnifying glass examining a woman in an advert for a sports bra, I think, or something along those, like lingerie maybe.
Yeah. I think that followed Carla's accusation of Jonathan having a fascination with breasts.
Yeah. A woman's breasts, she says.
Yes.
The sort of language that all ladies use. But the CGI, again, doesn't hold up very well on the big modern screens. It's there's a spark on the billboard, and I think it probably would have worked out better in standard definition.
I'm not sure. I thought that spark was deliberate to...
Yeah, it showed it malfunctioning. Yeah, it looks really fake on the screen.
Yeah. It was a nice visual joke, mind you. I liked it.
No, yeah, it was good.
However, when he turns back from looking at this himself, Carla has vanished, but quickly reappears from the shadows with Kenny.
Yes, and there's a knife both to Kenny's throat and to Carla's.
Yes, held by these two dodgy guys.
Yeah. Instead of saving the women, Kenny discussed it with the men who he believed to be reasonable people.
I mean, Jonathan is just as culpable here for leaving this idiot in charge.
It's literally the dumbest thing that anyone could do.
Yeah, it's so dumb that the next thing we see is both Jonathan and Carla trapped in a cage above some spikes, and the rope that's holding this cage up is being set on fire.
Yeah, I mean, presumably Kenny's been killed at this point.
Hopefully. He deserves it.
We never see him again, and we never find out what happened to the women, so we can only assume that's what's happened.
Laughing, the two guys leave with Kenny as Carla...
about to be killed then.
as Carla panics as she faces her doom.
Yeah, Jonathan becomes the subject of her ire when he fails to explain that they're fine.
Yeah, he's looking quite calm considering.
Yeah, you'd think she would take that cue, but obviously he's not the only one that's not picking up the signals.
No, he admits that they have 20 seconds before the rope snaps, and then the safety cable is deployed.
Yeah, and it'll be there for about 11 hours till the caretaker comes in.
Surely one of them has a phone on them.
Maybe they got taken off them.
You should have seen that then. There should have been a handing over your cash and your phones.
It gets worse as the sprinklers come on in the theatre.
Yeah. Carla then asks about the Marx brothers, and so Jonathan goes on to reveal his theory.
What I said, the hotel had to be in on it. Some pre-arranged scheme he took to them. Hacking out secret doorways in the shower cubicles, hardly going to escape notice, but what if they went for something a bit more oblique, using the very fact that it was a hotel to their advantage? So let's say the first guy, who's an accomplice, breaks into the bathroom, puts on a bit of a husky voice, could be Claude, could be anyone. Now you take that face pack out of the equation, this all goes out the window. But with it, what happens? You've got two people there wearing masks. In a room that, because it's a hotel, is right next to another bathroom completely identical, only built the other way round. So then, the key moment comes when he shoves her head down. If at that moment the mirror's briefly flipped back, leaving just a sheet of glass, with a couple of people on the other side playing reflections, the whole trick becomes pretty undemanding. It's the classic routine where Harpo's dressed as Groucho, matching all his moves behind the shattered mirror, except Louise, or whoever it is under that other mud pack, only has to keep it up for a few seconds. A moment later the mirror's back in place, and there's not a shred of doubt in Donna's mind who's stepping into that shower and pulling the curtain.
This exact trick was in the most recent Muppets movie with Ricky Gervais and Kermit and the evil Kermit.
It's the only place that this would be believable. You can't, I mean, it's a type of trick that Jonathan himself would have ridiculed had Maddie come up with this is a solution.
Yeah.
And it's a type of trick that you could do on paper. Theoretically, you could say, okay, this is how we'll pull this off. But I think it's a nonsense to think that you could actually do it.
He just nonchalantly says, oh yeah, the mirror's slid back. What, like all hotels have that facility?
Well, I think we hinted before. The hotel was in it. Okay, I don't believe for a second that the hotel would agree to this just because they get a bad review. And the hotel doesn't have all these glazers and that on staff. Even if they did, how many people are involved in this scam?
Need to cover this up now, yeah.
Because even if you don't say why you're doing it, it basically looks like you bring in glazers to do this. It looks like you're putting in some sort of peeping window.
Deeply illegal.
Yeah.
I think there was a company in Glasgow got into trouble for that not that long ago.
They have a nightclub. Although I don't think they were hiding the fact that they were doing that. I think it was promoted as a...
Yeah, you could come and see people at the toilet and
Yeah.
stuff like that. It was really weird.
Yeah. Although in fairness, it wasn't. They weren't on. It was. They were at the basins.
Still.
Oh yeah, still yeah. It's totally unacceptable. And I think actually the club closed down.
And yeah, I think the company got into a bit of bother.
Rightly so.
Yeah.
Anyhow, he goes on to say that the manager grabbing the supposed Claude and then escaping was all rehearsed.
No doubt.
And she says that all they need to do now is to get him to admit it. But Jonathan thinks that the real question is why Marco apparently killed himself. But I mean, that's Carla just doing the same thing again. All we need to do now is get Claude to admit it. You've tried that once.
Yeah. You see, this is how he's like, no, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, and you would see that because, say, okay, take that to court then.
Yeah.
Go down to the cops and see if they want to progress this charge.
Prove it.
Yeah, you'd be laughed at. So the hotel would have to have immediately got the guys back in to put it right again.
Yeah. Remove that facility.
Mm-hmm.
And then you could never prove it.
Nonsense.
Also, they would have to have replaced the mirrors themselves. It wouldn't just be about that slides out.
No.
I mean, the mirrors themselves would have to be something different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We're at the TV studio where Carla is showing Jonathan a copy of a book signing that was Marco's last public appearance 18 months ago, and it shows Claude standing behind him.
Yeah. Carla says again that she's convinced she's read somewhere about his fear of flying.
Yeah, and he says that he has a feeling that they have been sidetracked. No one chucks a parrot out of the window before they jump. I've got an issue with that.
Yeah, someone who wanted to land on the parrot and fly away.
Yeah. But we do know that when it comes to people taking their own lives, there are plenty of incidents of...
We've talked about this before. Yeah. They don't act rationally.
Yeah, but not even that. Jonathan's saying that, you wouldn't kill your beloved parrot. Parents kill their kids.
Yeah.
It's homicide, suicide, or murder, suicide, whatever it is. You think, I can't go on, can't leave my rest of my family behind, so I'm taking the whole lot. So you might take your parrot with you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it was in the Columbo podcast. We went into that in some detail. Maybe even the very last episode.
No, there was the Etude in Black. We discussed that.
I think there was a later one where the guy he found the evidence in the fingernails in the toilet.
Yes.
Can't remember which episode that is.
No.
Anyhow, Brendan comes in at this point, interrupts them, and remarks on their 12 hours in a cage together and jokes that it's a good thing he doesn't get jealous before the phone rings.
That was great.
He answers it by saying, "It'll be all shite in the night."
Yeah, that was a nice line. Carla eventually finds the article which reveals that Marco had a phobia after being in a plane that caught fire during the war. I'm not sure if it crashed or not, but...
Yeah, no, it caught fire and it led to a lifelong phobia.
Yeah. So they leave Baxter to it, and they wander off, where Jonathan has to admit that he might be out of order when he asks Carla what she's doing with her husband.
I'm not sure what Brendan did there that made him so upset. I suppose this is the first time he's seen her since she spent 12 hours in a cage. Yeah. He's not given her a hug or asked her how she's doing or anything like that, but it's not made clear that that's what it is.
No, but yeah, I think you're right. Jonathan realises that Brendan is just so focused on his job.
There's no affection. Yeah.
And I think perhaps, but Carla is, because she's now the face of some of his programmes, she's
an asset.
Yeah. She unconvincingly, certainly to us, I think, claims to be in love with Baxter.
Yeah, we've not seen evidence of that.
No.
This next couple of scenes is a bit weird.
Tell me about it.
Well, Donna's invited Claude out for dinner at a restaurant. He says she's surprised he's come, first of all. Mm-hmm. He says he's come to gloat. And she says just because she does what she does doesn't mean she believes in it. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, she's saying that, she does what her bosses want, what the readers want.
Following orders.
Just following orders, yeah.
Readers and editors are bored with balance, apparently.
Yeah. And she's got, to an extent, not to the extreme levels here, but I don't believe that everything a journalist writes necessarily is their own personal opinion. I think you are writing for an audience.
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough. But you don't have to. You could get another job. If you're not comfortable with it.
Sure, but again, if I was trying to stand up for her, she is perhaps in her 50s. Mm-hmm. Perhaps when she first started, she was more idealistic, but the industry has changed over the years, and I'm not sure if a career change at this stage in her career and her life would be possible.
Yeah, I mean, she does apologise at this point. She's, I think, at least trying to sound believable when she does it.
Yeah, and it seems to have worked because the next thing that we see is her head giving the headboard a good pummeling in the bedroom.
Yes, as Claude does the same to her.
Yeah, and it's the next morning. I think she thinks there might be some sort of relationship brewing, but no, he's not changed his opinion of her.
No, she says she'll always be a cold, transparent manipulator, and I think he says something else, but I didn't write it down before he leaves.
Yeah, he has just used this as a means of humiliation, degradation.
Yep, she looks quite upset as he leaves.
Understandably.
You would say so.
In the Bergman kitchen. Quick scene here. What happens?
Well, Carrie's getting her shocked, but not showing you what it is thing going on again. As she takes the bin out and finds something underneath the bin bag.
Back to the TV studio, where Carla is now attached to the game show lie detector machine, which believes can prove something to Jonathan.
Yeah, she tells Jonathan that her marriage is based on a deep and reciprocal love, at which point a series of alarms go off and the screens say lie.
And she demands to be released. Just then, Jonathan puts a few things together with the help from a quote from Marco's book. The words New Deal, Pearl Harbor, the Great Depression and FDR.
Well, where does Pearl Harbor come in? He says that she's putting her name to this garbage from the makers of Pearl Harbor. He's talking about the Japanese.
Yeah, but it's just the word. It's just word association here.
Yeah,
all these things relate to FDR.
Yeah, but Pearl Harbor's only come up because Jonathan is saying that a Japanese TV show is terrible because the Japanese also did Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, but he set himself off. Yeah, no, it's not. But it's not. He's triggered himself then.
It's a strange thing to say, though.
It's a very strange thing to say. I think it's obviously forced to be convenient.
Yeah, so you've got these three obscure FDR references, which conveniently lead to the fact that Marco also has a deep secret.
Yeah. He realises that he wasn't afraid of flying, and that the socks and the scratched lock reveal an extremely cynical murder. That is a bit of a...
It's ridiculous. I mean, I think if these references had been in things published by Marco as sort of clues to his own condition, that would be one thing.
Yeah.
But the fact that Jonathan's plucking these things out of thin air, making this connection to this other guy who had a similar lie, it stretches credulity, I think.
It does. However, we're back over at the Bergman house, where an agitated Carrie is staring at the parrot before opening a bag and removing a syringe and rolling up her sleeve.
Yes. Louise enters the room and takes it away.
She does indeed.
I think she says, I better take this.
Yeah. And you're not sure at this point...
Who's the bad guy? Yeah.
In the car, Jonathan and Carla are on their way to the Bergmans.
Yeah, they stop at the spot where they think that Claude and Carrie and Louise witnessed the suicide from.
Yeah, but he claims there is no way it was suicide, and that something in the room made Marco jump.
At this point, Carla spots Carrie similarly climbing out of a window.
Yes, so they speed over to her.
They do, and they arrive in time to tell her to get back in the window.
Yes. I mean, she's demented, claiming that Louise has locked her in her room and taken her insulin.
Have they made her stay in her dead grandfather's room? Or is it a different room? Because it looked like the same window.
Yeah.
He's just died.
You're right enough, yeah. I think it was the same window.
That's the most grotesque thing I've ever heard of.
Yeah, of course, but you're saying made her unless...
No, she asked to.
Yeah.
They're still in the bed that he slept in. Oh, it's a little bit
Change the
creepy.
sheets.
Anyway.
They rush up to find Louise claiming that Carrie locked herself in. So Louise is outside the door, and she had no reason to take her insulin. But Carrie claims that they now know that Louise murdered her grandfather.
And was trying to kill Carrie herself.
Yes. This is, I do quite like the character of Louise and how it develops.
I do, and Claude shows up at this point.
Yep.
That's why we see him coming up the stairs. He doesn't say anything.
We are downstairs now, where Jonathan does his sum up thing.
Suppose we might just have swallowed that line about an old man giving up after a bad press review. Possibly. If it hadn't been for the utterly pointless act of hurling a live bird out of the window. A couple of things in his room and the way he behaved last time he was seen in public conjured up some obscure parallel with Franklin D. Roosevelt. FDR, the most respected president of the 20th century, who for 12 years managed to con the vast majority of America into thinking he could walk. People saw him drag himself along, whole body weight supported on someone's arm, and had no idea he was completely paralysed from the waist down. Somewhere here, I don't know, there was a very creepy echo of that deception. A man who has trouble locating the keyhole in his wardrobe, whose socks have been very carefully pinned together in pairs, and whose eye lines in that bookshop were just a little bit uncomfortable. All pointed to a sad truth you were desperate to keep from the public. That for the last 2 years, Marco Bergman was blind.
Who would you say is the most respected president of the 20th century?
Well, there's obviously only 2 candidates, Bush and Reagan.
Get out. I'm going for Kennedy.
Yeah, I mean, that's the obvious one. I suppose it depends how you look at it. I mean,
Yeah.
Kennedy had a number of flaws as well, certainly in his personal life.
After Roosevelt, I suppose.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyway, shouldn't the police be here?
Yes.
I mean, this is one of those things where sometimes, yeah, they let Jonathan explain it and then they come in, but there's no police presence at all.
No, again, Jonathan is derelict in his duty here. When he realises what's happened and he speeds to the house with Carla, he should have also been telling the police to get there as well.
Yes, and telling them about the women that he's allowed to be
Yeah, trafficked.
Anyway.
After the clip there, we hear Claude, who is forced to admit that, yes, Marco was blind, and he himself had been the designer. Hence why Donna Henry had, I suppose, been writing these.
Yeah, they weren't as good.
Yeah, she was probably accurate.
Yeah, and Jonathan explains that, yeah, the parrot was being saved and the fear wasn't flying, it was fire.
Yes, he was terrified of fire because of the plane incident.
Yeah,
back
not terrified of planes, yeah.
Yeah.
Which isn't very clear from what he says in the book, to be fair.
And he goes on to explain what really occurred with the setup and Carrie as a convenient witness.
Yeah. So the fire phobia, was taken advantage of by an evil daughter, Louise. She created an audio cassette recording of a roaring fire with herself shouting at her dad not to try and leave the room, that the window's his only chance, they're going to put cushions down.
Oh dear.
Terrifies him into leaping. He throws the parrot out to save him, showing a good heart, what a nice man he was, and then jumps to his death, thinking that his family are going to save him.
Yes,
So
and
at least he died happy.
those last few seconds must be like, safety, stop! A microsecond where you realise this hasn't went well.
This is going terribly, terribly wrong.
Yes, and it was this tape that Carrie had found in the dustbin
This
earlier.
is convenient, yet it just missed the corner of the bag and slipped down underneath to be found by Carrie.
Yeah.
Anyway, Louise heard Carrie playing the tape and obviously had to kill her by removing her insulin.
Would you say that Louise is now the cruelest and coldest of the Jonathan critique murderers we've had?
She's up there, but I have a theory that Claude is involved in this and they're hiding, covering for him. Because I don't see that there's any way that Claude could have thought his father was reading that newspaper when he knows he's blind.
What tell me again?
The cause of death was he read this article and committed suicide. But they know that's true because they found the article in his bedroom. But Claude must know he wasn't reading the paper. He's blind.
That's a very good point, Ian, yeah. And that probably explains why at the beginning they made a point of Carrie not being around for a number of years. So she wouldn't have been aware either that he was blind.
So only Louise and Claude know.
Yeah.
But yet Claude acts surprised here as if, well, it's nothing to do with me. So maybe this is Louise taking the bullet for the pair of them.
That's an excellent point. Yeah, I've never considered that, because he apparently believed and went to the restaurant to confront Donna Henry about the article, made her eat her words. He must have said to himself, okay, how did he, unless Louise has said that she read the paper to him, but then how did it be opened in his...
Yeah, in his room.
In his room. Of course, maybe she was reading it, maybe he was in bed and she was sitting at the table reading this article.
For start, why would you do that to your elderly father who's
exactly? So if it's
depressed?
A really bad article, it doesn't help anyone by...
He doesn't need to know it exists.
Yeah. That's I've never thought about that, Ian, yeah. Oh yeah, Claude was in this.
He must have
He
been.
must have been, yeah. There's only two people who could have read that article to him. So when he should have said, how do you know
He's
about
either
this?
in on it or he is happy to let it pass.
Yeah.
So maybe Louise doesn't know that Claude must know, but he probably figured it out right at the start. If he wasn't involved.
There you go.
Anyway, Louise goes on to explain. She confesses because obviously the pressure's too much.
Rather than break down, she goes a bit psycho here, doesn't she?
Yeah, well, she explains her motivations. In her world, this is reasonable. Her father treated the pair of them like idiots. She reads a passage from the book that upset her where she's described as a talentless clothes horse, in her words. And she thinks that she deserves respect for stepping up for once, for not being a brainless idiot.
Yeah, this motive is weak for me.
Yeah.
Well, okay, we'll get to the motive in the episode review.
So she looks around and everyone's staring at her like she's got horns coming out of her head and she doesn't understand why.
Yeah, you would do. There's no remorse here. She's saying as if, it's obvious, isn't it? I had to kill him.
And she says, well, why are you looking at me like I'm mad?
I think this is a point where she says she will no longer be a tailor's dummy.
Yes, and that's the episode title, obviously.
As she looks at a painting of Marco above the fire. I enjoyed that. I thought that was nice.
We go back to the set of Guilty Secrets.
Yes, Jonathan is watching the new show being wrapped up in the gallery before Baxter reveals the real reason that he knows the show is going to be a success.
Yeah, the polygraph produces a random result 6 times out of 10, or I presume a random positive.
Yes.
6 times out of 10, and they don't know which ones to keep.
Yeah, now this obviously disappoints Jonathan.
We also assume that Carla doesn't know that.
Yeah.
So she'll have to be surprised and treat it as if it's real information. So it's a secret from her as well, and also from the people at the network, because Brandon explains that they maybe wouldn't. I keep calling him Brandon. Brendan explains that they maybe wouldn't be as, open to this approach as he is.
You realise what I'm saying about Jonathan
yes,
being
about
disappointed?
when Carla sat in the chair.
Yeah, but Jonathan's disappointed now because she knows
he
that,
thought that Carla's marriage wasn't based on reciprocal love, or she didn't believe that. Yeah. And now he thinks maybe she should believe that, and that's why she was so upset.
Baxter then leaves the room, and who enters?
Yeah, Donna comes in. She's still writing this article about Brendan's production company, but the material so far is uninspiring. Yeah,
she's doing some background research, I think, just now, looking for general info, and a sneaky Jonathan sees this as an opportunity.
I think he's trying to maybe put a little bit of a wedge in there in that little marriage. He's maybe starting to. Well, I think he genuinely doesn't think that they belong together.
That's not.
Whether it's something to do with him or not.
Yeah, that's again, it doesn't give him the right to do anything. He should not be interfering.
This is an inappropriate step to take.
Very.
Again. One inappropriate step after another. Let's hope there's a happy ending.
Cool.
Machiavellian. But yeah, he asks Donna if she can keep a secret, knowing full well the answer. It's no.
Yeah, not the nicest of.
Well, we've seen this sort of cruel behaviour from characters in the show before. It's I suppose it's very real and human, but it's an odd set of circumstances.
Certainly.
What about Kenny and the women? So we presume he's dead and they're off to the other side of the world being trafficked.
Yeah, they've been abused on a regular basis and then probably killed at the end of their
useful life, yeah. Or, yeah, that's it. I don't think there's anything else we can say about that.
Yeah.
It's a sad end to the story. Poor Kenny, R.I.P. Kenny.
Nah, not poor Kenny so much.
No, he's an evil man and deserved to die.
Yeah, he's part of a people trafficking ring.
Yes, and that's what happens to people who get involved in that sort of thing.
Yeah, just say no, kids.
Okay, so no R.I.P. Kenny?
Nope. 15th of March 2003 was the original air date of The Tailor's Dummy. You will certainly be aware of Maureen Lipman, who played Louise Bergman.
Of course.
Born in 1946. Her credits include Plebs, Ladies of Letters, Casualty, Doctor Who, Coronation Street, Agony Again, The Pianist, About Face, you've used that joke before, Ian.
Okay.
Couples, and Educating Rita. She was married to playwright Jack Rosenthal until his death in 2004, and is an Olivia Award winner, but for many people, certainly of our generation, I'd suggest, is best known as Beatty from the BT commercials.
Probably.
Claude was played by Nicholas Jones, who was born in 1946. You may have seen him recently in Darkest Hour, War Machine, Philomena, Little Dorrit, Sensitive Skin, Jericho, Kavanagh QC, or Casualty, The Bill, Our Mutual Friend, Coronation Street, and he is the son of actor Griffith Jones and the brother of actress Gemma Jones. Carrie, she's played by Victoria Shalley, who was born in 1981. She has starred in Doctors, The Queen's Nose, The Bill, The Vice, Midsummer Murders, but apparently she fell out of love with acting and is now a therapist in London.
Good for her.
Yeah. Old Marco was played by Jeffrey Seagal.
Stevenson.
Stevenson. That would be brilliant if that was the case. Unfortunately not. He died in 2015, aged 94. This was his last on-screen appearance. He has also been in Lytton's Diary, Rent-A-Ghost, Fawlty Towers, Z-Cars, UFO, Compact, and the Strauss Family. He was a stage and a radio actor. Any trivia?
There's not very much. I think Alan Davis had some platitudes for how great it was to work with Maureen Lipman, and it was a lovely big house, but he didn't remember where it was.
Yeah.
That's about all the trivia that I managed to pull.
How could you not remember where it was?
So many places, darling.
I've got nothing.
Okay, fair enough.
Episode review.
Let's go.
Motive.
Bitterness of child, I guess.
Yeah. Greed, revenge for her treatment. But I mentioned a moment ago, this is quite a weak motive.
I think it's implied that she's taken some kind of mental break, that she's no longer in touch with reality.
It would have to be, because this guy is 79, right? So,
yeah, he's not offering any threat. I mean, she does explain, he never let up even after he went blind, but still.
Yeah, but I mean,
he's not able to do that much.
Realistically, how long has he got, you know? So you bide your time and you'll get it all anyway. But not just that. There's no sign that they don't have a fabulous lifestyle just now anyway, while they're waiting on this inheritance. Yeah. So, you know, if you had some other... if they developed the motive a little bit, like she was in need of money or something to drive this, but it's just pure greed. It doesn't seem...
Yeah.
You know?
No, I can't really argue. It was not a nice thing.
Mm-hmm. Clues. Okay. We've got the fake crash at the start, the red herring.
Mm-hmm.
We've got her bitterness that she admits. Marco's fear of fire. The throwing of the parrot. His bedroom light being off. The scratch marks on the wardrobe and the pinned socks.
Yeah. The cassette tape in the bin was quite a big clue.
Well, the cassette tape in general, it wasn't a clue for Jonathan.
Well, I presume Carrie told him about it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
More than a clue, really, isn't it?
Especially that's it, yeah.
Well, that's a...
Do we assume that she's destroyed that when she locked Carrie in the room?
Who knows? Did she take it off her? No.
Well, she heard her playing it, but she must have taken it. We didn't see it, but she must have. She wouldn't have left it with her.
But there would have been a fight then. She's a younger girl. She could have easily...
Well, if she's taking the insulin, Carrie's obviously struggling at that point.
Yeah, true.
She must have then taken out the tape deck, I would think.
Yeah, because if we're going to say the gotcha is effectively the tape.
If she's now destroyed the tape, who knows?
I suppose the fact that she turns into a bit of a psycho and admits it, you know, it's not...
Yeah, no, she's proud of it, isn't she? She's not going to hide back from it. She thinks she's acted reasonably.
Yeah. So if it is the case that she has had some sort of breakdown, this isn't the typical case where we say, okay, you don't recant it in court. I think it'd be a case of this might actually be her defence.
Yeah.
Next time we have The Seer of the Sands.
Yes, we're into the second half of the season then.
Doesn't sound that interesting, does it? The Seer of the Sands.
No, I'm hoping it's maybe an away trip for Jonathan, gets to go out to the desert or something.
We'll find out in 2 weeks.
Scarborough Beach. Okay, so we'll see folks later. Cheerio.
Bye bye.